Imagine a city built on nothing but a promise. Washington, D.C. is not like London, Paris, or Rome. It is not a city that grew out of trade or a strategic fortress. It is an artificial creation, a federal city designed on a drawing board to hold a young, fragile nation together. The year is 1790. Following the Revolutionary War, the United States is deeply in debt and politically fractured. The North, led by Alexander Hamilton, wants a strong central government. The South, represented by Thomas Jefferson, fears that very power. The Compromise, the Residence Act. The North takes over the war debts, and in exchange, the Capitol is built in the South. George Washington personally selects the site on the Potomac River. It is a compromise between the states of Maryland and Virginia, a 10-mile square that belongs to no single state but directly to the people. It was called the District of Columbia, named after Columbus, while the city itself was to bear the name of the first president. But this land was not an empty void. It was characterized by dense forests, rolling hills, and, as legend often, though geologically not quite correctly, says, vast swamplands. This was where the experiment of democracy was to take shape. To design the city, Washington hired French engineer Pierre-Charles L'Enfant. L'Enfant was a visionary with a difficult personality. His plan was radical, a grid-like street network intersected by massive diagonal avenues. These avenues were not mere roads, they were sightlines. Standing at the Capitol, you looked directly at the president's house. Everything in this city was meant to radiate grandeur and transparency. L'Enfant dreamed of a new Paris. He planned public squares, monumental fountains, and parks. But his ego became his undoing. He refused to have his plans printed, fearing speculators would profit from them. He even tore down the partially built house of an influential citizen because it stood in the way of one of his sightlines. After only 1 year, he was fired, yet his layout remained. The construction of the first buildings was a Herculean logistical task. The White House and the Capitol were built almost simultaneously. They used sandstone from the Aquia quarries in Virginia. Did you know that the White House wasn't originally intended to be white? The gray sandstone was painted with a mixture of lime, rice, and lead to protect it from frost. Thus the name was born. The work was grueling and largely carried out by enslaved African Americans who labored in the mud of the construction sites. In those early years, D.C. was a city of construction sites and morasses. A British diplomat mocked at the time, "You don't need a city tour here. You need hunting gear." The young city was nearly destroyed in 1814. During the War of 1812, British troops marched into the city. In one of the darkest hours of American history, they burned down the White House, the Capitol, and the Treasury. It is said the sky over the Potomac glowed red from the fire, but the city refused to die. Reconstruction began immediately. But Washington had another problem: its size. The district was a massive square spanning both sides of the river. The town of Alexandria, on the south side of the Potomac, felt neglected. Residents feared Congress would ban the slave trade in the district, which would have destroyed their economy. In 1846, the so-called retrocession occurred. The entire portion south of the river was returned to Virginia. With this, D.C. lost a third of its territory and its perfect square shape. Then came the Civil War. Overnight, Washington became the most heavily fortified city in the world. A ring of 68 forts was erected around the Capitol. While Lincoln fought in the White House to preserve the Union, the Capitol was finally completed. Lincoln insisted that the construction of the massive dome continue despite the war. He said, "If people see that the Capitol is going on, it is a sign that we intend the Union shall go on." By 1900, Washington, D.C. was far from L'Enfant's glittering vision. The National Mall was not a park, but a muddy field with railroad tracks and slaughterhouses. It was the Macmillan Commission in 1901 that changed everything. Inspired by the City Beautiful movement, they cleared the mall. They created the monumental center we know today, the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, and the vast green spaces. A key law from this era still shapes the city's face today, the Height of Buildings Act of 1910. Unlike New York or Chicago, there are no skyscrapers in D.C. No building may significantly exceed the width of the adjacent street. This ensures that the Capitol and the Washington Monument dominate the skyline, a symbol that democratic institutions stand above commercial profit. In the mid-20th century, Washington became the stage for social change. The National Mall saw millions of people fighting for freedom and equality. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech in 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial is deeply etched into the city's DNA. But while D.C. represented democracy to the world, its own citizens long had no say. It wasn't until 1973, through the Home Rule Act, that the city gained its own mayor and city council. Today, Washington is more than just marble and politics. With the opening of the Metro in 1976 and the revitalization of neighborhoods like U Street or the Navy Yard, it has become a vibrant global metropolis. But one question remains open: status as the 51st state. D.C. residents pay taxes and serve in the military, but have no voting representative in Congress. Taxation without representation, the slogan that once sparked the American Revolution, is now the motto on the Capitol's license plates. Washington, D.C. remains a city in transition, a geometric masterpiece, a political experiment, and a living monument. When you walk these streets, you aren't just walking on asphalt. You are walking on the lines of a vision drawn into a swamp of the Potomac over 230 years ago.